Production funding for QED with Dr. B is provided by
Battelle cares about STEM because it was part of our founding. Gordon Battelle, our founder, believed in building an institute that would actually better society through the use of science and technology. And this year we're going to hit a goal of 1 million students a year that we'll be able to impact around the country.
American Electric Power Foundation, boundless energy for brighter futures. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Frederick Bertley, scientist and President and CEO of COSI. Welcome to QED with me, Dr. B. Let's talk about science.
Today we're going to talk about coffee from farm to the cup. I grew up around coffee drinkers. They loved coffee, but I really didn't start drinking coffee until about 10 years ago. I had this great cup of coffee from a local roaster, and it had the perfect amount of cream in it. Dr. B, you only recently started to drink coffee, so do you like medium or dark roast?
I like dark roast, but actually I just started drinking coffee just out of necessity. Kind of got a little older in age and I need a little pick-me-up in the middle of the day, so I drink it black and no sugar, no cream, but it really works. It keeps me stimulated, which is great.
Well, later in the show, we'll be talking about how migratory birds are an integral part of coffee farms, and then we'll visit the UC Davis Coffee Center, a whole research center focused on the coffee industry. But first, let's talk about the coffee bean itself. You know, even though we all drink it, how much do we really know about that coffee plant, which is the organism that produces the coffee beans?
That's so interesting. Today, we actually know a lot. There's so much genetic analysis of the coffee bean, the coffee plant. And one of the fundamental reasons to doing that is to ensure we stabilize the possibility to grow coffee for generations to come. For more on that, I talked with Dr. Juan Medrano, Professor Emeritus at UC Davis Coffee Center in California.
And makes an exquisite sound here.
Look at that. Showcasing a great pour over with none other than the expert Dr. Juan Medrano. So Dr. Medrano, you're an expert on coffee, you're an expert on the molecular biology and genetics of coffee. Let's talk about sequencing the genome for coffee. Why would a scientist want to do that?
Sequencing the genome, is the first step that we follow to be able to understand it. You know, in terms of a species, we want to understand what genes are involved in controlling the traits and how they work. But you can think of the genome of coffee of any species as a book, as the book of life. The book of life that is written with letters, and the letters of DNA are 4 letters, A, C, T, G, and they're organized in this book. When we first sequence the genome, we end up with this book full of letters, that are lines. And then the process becomes to organize these letters in chapters. Books are organized in chapters that you can think of as the chromosomes. And then the chapters are organized in paragraphs and sentences. The paragraphs and sentences become the genes and the spaces between the genes. So then we begin to read the book. Once we understand that we have these chapters organized and we have these paragraphs, and that leads us to be able to have a much better understanding of the genome itself. But you start with a sequence of letters that, first of all, don't mean anything until you can put it together. That understanding is what we're after.
What are you looking at, or what are you looking for when you're sequencing or analyzing the DNA of coffee?
We're looking for how to improve the sustainability of coffee. Coffee is a product that is touched by many people. The farmers play a huge part in the production of coffee and the processing and the preparation of coffee. There's a lot of challenges, that have come to coffee in recent times. Challenges related to climate change. What climate change has done is increase the volatility of the farming system. Now we have extremes, extremes that we need to adapt to. And the genome is kind of the background of this that can help us understand how to move in this direction. In relation to coffee, the expectation is that the temperatures are going to increase, and it's going to reduce some of the areas that were planted with coffee because of increasing temperatures of 1.5 to 4 degrees in the near future. But we also have frost, cold. So we need to find plants that are more resilient to adapting to these changes in environments and management systems that we can work with. So the genome helps us identify some of those opportunities that we have in terms of genetic selection. And it's not only climate, because the changes in climate also bring changes in disease. Diseases are opportunistic. If you have more humidity, more rain, less rain, there's diseases. So that's why we're interested. What are the variations that are present in different coffee plants that we can take advantage to produce a more adaptable plant?
How has your specific research ensured that we still have delicious coffee to drink every day?
This is exactly what we're interested in doing, to understanding the genome and see what advantage we can take from this diversity that exists in nature in terms of producing coffees that are outstanding. What are the components of flavor and quality that make it so special? We're also making crosses between different varieties of coffees, looking at the progeny of those crosses to see if we can develop a much better, resilient, and exquisite coffee. It's inspiring, to have the opportunity to be able to actually do something to help the sustainability of coffee. I've traveled to many parts of the world where coffee is grown, and you want to contribute to sustaining this way of life. Now we're producing coffee in California, in Southern California, and it's a great experience to look at this new environment and be able to develop adaptation of plants that can grow well in California and the continental USA. So it's inspiring, to have this opportunity to be able to work with great people and contribute to this endeavor. The coffee industry is huge. There's about 125 million people around the world whose livelihood depend on coffee. It touches the lives of so many, from the production, from the farmers, to the traders, to the importers, to the servers, and to all the 25 million people that drink all those cups of coffee.
My wife and I firmly believe in representation. Unfortunately, minorities have been grossly underrepresented in the coffee industry for almost as long as it exists. And even so, most people are not familiar with the history behind Ethiopian coffee. They're more familiar with Jamaica Blue Mountain coffees or Kona coffees. However, Ethiopia is the birthplace of all of those great beans, and it doesn't get the recognition it needs.
We had a really great time at the Columbus Coffee Festival. It was really interesting to see this new coffee culture that's arisen in the last few years with all the new flavors and really geeky science behind roasting. But Dr. B, there's still room for older folks to like their big name coffee, right?
Of course. It's really part of our culture. And the really cool thing and wonderful thing about breaking it down scientifically is we learn all these things about something that's part of our everyday lives. And to study that and glean that information, it really helps leverage culture in a big, powerful way because everybody can relate to coffee. And what we're finding scientifically is it's really hard to engineer these flavors because there's so many variables that you have to take into account, like the water you're using to filter, the coffee beans, of course, the source, how you're grinding, the size of the grind. There are all these differentiated factors that can actually dictate how the coffee is going to taste. So from a scientific perspective, this is just really fun to analyze. And for more on that, we talked with Dr. William Ristenpart, professor of chemical engineering at UC Davis and the Coffee Center, who teaches a full cool course on brewing coffee. Dr. Ristenpart, you have the coolest career on the planet. You're a chemical engineer, and you and your colleagues created a whole course called The Design of Coffee. What inspired you to do that?
So here at UC Davis, we have a whole department of viticulture and enology, the growing of grapes and the making of wine. And wine is about a $68 billion per year industry. Coffee in the United States is an $88 billion per year industry. Coffee is way bigger, but historically, we've had zero faculty, zero professors focused on coffee. There's like a huge unmet research need. We got into it because we wanted to teach science and engineering, but very quickly there was so much enthusiasm and interest from the coffee industry and the especially Coffee Association and other trade groups, that we saw, wow, there really are huge unmet research and advanced education needs about coffee that we can help address. So the Design of Coffee course, it's an introductory course. Our goal is to really get them to start thinking about using a scientific and engineering approach to tackle problems. And the problem we think about in this class is how do we make the best tasting coffee using the least amount of electrical energy? So it's not just a taste test or a contest. It's really how do we think about maximizing the sustainability of a beverage that we all love.
How do you decide what the best tasting coffee is? Isn't that a subjective thing to begin with?
It's absolutely subjective. That's one of the things I've learned the most over the past 10 years or so is that consumer preferences are very wildly. So some of our students really like that strong, bitter, smoky, really dark roasted coffee. Other ones prefer very light, more tea-like or floral coffee, right? And so different people like different things. And figuring out how to prepare your coffee, how to roast it, grind it, and brew it such that you can really maximize those desirable flavor profiles, it's not easy. It's actually really complicated.
Can you explain what TDS stands for?
So there's about 1,000 different flavor molecules that have been identified in coffee. And because it's so complicated, and you can't really identify how much of any particular molecule is there without specialized chemistry equipment, what people do is they measure the total dissolved solids. It's called the TDS, and that's how much of the coffee stuff that's in the coffee grounds dissolves into the liquid. And so a jet black cup of coffee, it's still 99% water, roughly, and 1% TDS. You actually have to think about all the sciencey engineering things that are happening during the mass transfer and the heat transfer during that brewing process.
You hear about all these different coffees from Colombia to Ethiopia to Jamaica to wherever around the world. But what you're talking about is, you can grow the bean, but there's this whole other process that happens after harvesting the bean that can determine if you have a good cup of coffee or not. Is that true?
Absolutely. So one of my favorite stories about coffee, I was actually on a road trip with my family up to Vancouver, and we stopped in a specialty coffee place, and I just ordered a black coffee, and I took a sip, and I was like, this has tremendous orange flavor. It tastes like orange. And I didn't know anything about coffee at the time, so I thought, why are these guys putting orange in my coffee? That's not what I ordered, right? So I went to the barista and said, why is there orange in here? And he was really cool. He was very patient. He said, no, it's a black coffee. It's just naturally present there. I was like, what? And that really blew my mind that coffee can have these specialty flavors. So I got a little obsessed after that and started trying to learn a bit more about it.
Wow, that's amazing. So I got to ask, though, for myself and the audience, the coffee tasted like orange. Can you walk us through how that happens? How did they bring an orange profile into a coffee?
So it's not, I want to emphasize, it's not adding weird molecules or chemicals. It's all about what is in the green bean after you harvest this coffee cherry, right? And then how you roast it, and then how you brew it. And so it's all molecules that are there naturally. Citrus flavor is due to a molecule called limonene, right? So it's a certain organic molecule, and it's there in coffee. So it's all about what is in the green beans, and then when you roast it, you get certain reactions that can create flavor molecules or destroy them. Getting that right roast profile such that you just balance things, that you have the right amount of these different molecules. It's so complicated. There's so many different chemical reactions taking place that right now we still don't have a very good understanding of how to answer a very natural question. How do we maximize the citrus flavor? And right now, mostly in the coffee industry, it's a lot of trial and error. What is astonishing is you can take the same roasted coffee beans and brew it differently and have it taste wildly differently. So we had more than 100 people come and taste 27 different sample types. And it was over 3 different weekends. And at the end of that, they were naturally very curious, what are we tasting, right? And we said, it was just the same coffee, but brewed differently. And they're like, what? Are you kidding? We thought it was different origins, things like that. Nope. They were drinking the same coffee every single time, just brewed differently. And so it has a huge impact.
What are other misconceptions that people have about what makes the best cup of coffee?
A very fascinating study we did is that if you go and look at all the brewing guidelines right now, they correctly point out that temperature is a key parameter. So the hotter your water, the more quickly you will extract the soluble materials into your cup of coffee. What we showed was actually what really matters in terms of the flavor profile is not the temperature of the water you use, but actually the final total dissolved solids and total extraction yield. It's true that the temperature affects how quickly you get there to a certain total dissolved solids. It doesn't matter what temperature you use to get there as long as you've got there.
So that's interesting. So that's kind of like you can drive a Honda, you can drive a Toyota or drive a Mercedes, but you're still getting to the final destination regardless of what transportation you got.
I hadn't used that analogy before, but I love it. So if you use lower water temperature, it'll take longer to get there, and maybe you have to use a finer grind size and a longer extraction time to get there. But eventually you get there, and then what our expert panel showed is that, like, you can't tell the difference. You're on top of the mountain.
How do you hope your research can better help the coffee industry?
So one of the realities about coffee is that there's about 100 million people around the world whose livelihood depends on coffee. You know, people at origin working on coffee farms. You know, I've been down to Central America lots of times, and there's plenty of families whose only actual cash income during the year is during coffee harvest season. And so anything that we can do here to improve the quality of coffee and the desirability of coffee helps not just the baristas and the people running around here making coffee, but it helps people all around the world. And so that's one reason I'm very motivated to work on coffee, because it does have such a huge impact on people across the world.
Did you know, just like how our bodies create lactic acid when there's a lack of oxygen when we're working out, that's so important in coffee. So when I'm sourcing a coffee and I have to pay attention to the elevation of where this coffee is grown due to what's called anaerobic respiration, meaning these higher grown coffees have less oxygen, which creates more lactic acid. So if you think of like a Kenyan coffee or an Ethiopian coffee, that's a higher grown coffee, meaning there's more lactic acid inside the coffee, giving that more of that like citrus tone and stuff like that. That would be compared to something different, like a Sumatran coffee grown at a lower elevation, or a Brazilian coffee, which might not have as much of that sour citrus acidity to it. So that is so important to us when we're sourcing coffee, to pay attention to these elevation levels so we know what to pick to get the right flavor characteristic for our coffee.
So we've talked about the coffee bean, and we've also talked about the taste of coffee. But let's step back for a few minutes and talk about the coffee industry as a whole. So recent data shows that 60% of all coffee production in the world is done by smallhold farmers. So what does that mean for the future of coffee production?
We learned that science can help small farmers increase their sustainability on their farms. One really cool recent finding is that coffee farming can actually impact migratory birds. And for that, we talked to Dr. Ruth Bennett, research ecologist at the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center.
Dr. Bennett, you're a research ecologist for the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center, which has established a bird-friendly certification for coffee. If I saw a bird-friendly certification on a bag of coffee, what does that mean?
There's a lot of certifications when it comes to coffee, and it's really hard to know what all of the differences are. But our certification, bird friendly, means that 100% of the coffee in that bag was grown in a way that's good for birds, that protects habitat for them, protects the farmers, and provides really a robust, healthy environment, both for the coffee, the farmers, and the wildlife community there.
That's fascinating. So why establish bird-friendly certification in the first place?
Since the 1970s, we have lost 3 billion birds in North America, and almost all of those are migratory birds. So our center has always been interested in studying where these birds go, what's happening to them, how we can protect them. And we discovered that a large majority of these migratory birds that are going through population declines spend the winter on coffee farms throughout Latin America. So those coffee growing areas are at mid-elevations. They're typically pretty close to forest. And when the coffee is grown with shade, with native vegetation, it provides really good habitat for those migratory birds.
So you really unpacked nicely how the birds actually rely on this micro ecosystem so that they can grow and develop and foster. Is there a reciprocal relationship? Do the birds actually help how these coffees are grown?
We and some other colleagues have done research to see what the birds are actually giving back to farmers. And we found that there's a small beetle called the coffee berry borer, which is a really important pest of coffee throughout Latin America. And when coffee farms keep enough shade trees on the farms and attract these migratory birds, those birds can actually control the coffee berry borer. And that's a monetary benefit for farmers. Otherwise, they would need to rely on heavy agrochemical use, which is really expensive. But if they keep forest around their farms, if they keep some shade trees on their farms, they're actually attracting birds in that then help them, for free, control this really detrimental coffee pest.
I love that symbiotic relationship. So how are the environment and the processes for bird-friendly coffee different from how most coffee is grown?
Yeah, so since the 1970s, about 75% of coffee has been converted from what we would consider bird-friendly coffee to full sun monocultures. So that process looks like chopping down all of the trees above the coffee, having nice, neat rows of only coffee underneath the sun, heavy agrochemical use, and that's now how most coffee is produced. But that type of habitat provides no space for birds and other wildlife. In contrast, a bird-friendly farm would have 10 to 30 different tree species planted above the coffee plants themselves, and those trees would be full of birds, full of other wildlife, ocelots, monkeys, sloths. It really sounds like a forest when you're in that type of environment. And in contrast, a full sun monoculture, it's hot, it's baked, it's pretty much lifeless.
Is the analysis of kind of the bird-friendly environment almost like a litmus for a larger sustainability? Can we draw a map to how we're thinking about growing bird-friendly coffee to the bigger ecosystem of how we're impacting these beautiful environments?
Yeah, absolutely. So coffee's grown in the most biodiverse places on the planet, tropical forests. So these ecosystems have tons and tons of life, sometimes life that hasn't even been discovered yet. And so when coffee farmers choose to keep trees on their farms, they're providing a service for all of the wildlife and all of the other ecosystem services like water conservation, water generation, carbon sequestration. So things that really impact us on a planetary scale and also impact that landscape scale where they find themselves.
How do you convince growers to sign on for establishing a bird-friendly environment?
Sure. So growers are primarily business people, and they respond to market pressures. So we work in a variety of ways to encourage growers to get bird-friendly certified. But the most effective one is when a coffee roaster, a coffee company in North America, decides to sell bird-friendly coffee. They're typically the ones that have the power to ask growers to get certified or to choose to pay more for farms that are already certified. So that's the strongest incentive we have to encourage farmers to get certified. But we also know that farmers are environmental stewards as well. So a lot of coffee farmers feel immense pride in the wildlife that they can serve on their farms. Many of those farmers will sign up for our certification even if there's no market for it, even if they don't have a buyer that's requesting bird-friendly coffee, because having an institution like the Smithsonian say your coffee is the gold standard of biodiversity conservation is something that gives them pride and recognizes the work that they're putting into maintaining that habitat.
So what is the ultimate goal of this bird-friendly initiative at the Smithsonian for the consumer and for the planet?
We really envision a world where coffee is grown in landscapes that conserve biodiversity, where they retain enough trees to really provide those ecosystem services and support birds on the farm. So Smithsonian bird-friendly coffee is still a small certification. We're not found in every grocery store yet, and we really depend on consumers knowing about this and saying, yes, I want that coffee that comes from places that are good for birds and good for wildlife and good for farmers. And that bolsters the certification and hopefully creates a world where there's more space for both coffee and birds.
I want to get coffee from other women to help them because I was reading how they're not treated fair because men can get paid $4 a pound of coffee and a woman can get paid 75 cents for the same exact bean. How I can help is by making sure I buy coffee from certified people that are doing the right thing for these women. Every pound of coffee, we give an extra 50 cents on top of what we paid, and that goes directly to them, to their pocket, to help them with just basic and necessary things.
So my takeaway is that I will keep going to the Columbus Coffee Festival every year because coffee is kind of like wine. The more you taste it, the more you get to know the flavors and the more you just start to enjoy it. So I think that everyone kind of needs to do that. So Dr. B, what's your takeaway?
You know, that's really great. The other big thing is coffee is an example of science in our everyday lives. And I got to tell you, if you don't drink enough, you'll sound a little squeaky like me on this show, but coffee is really something that unifies cultures, seen all around the world. It's an economic driver, but it really speaks to all of us because we can relate to it.
And that's QED with Dr. B. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, what is your favorite kind of coffee?
I like Americanos.
My favorite kind of coffee is French Market with chicory.
I really like coffee with vanilla creamer or an iced vanilla latte. Big vanilla person.
I like Snickerdoodle, which is cinnamon, hazelnut. I love that.
Cold brews, nitros, and iced coffee. And I usually prefer a lighter roast.
Black coffee, yeah, regular black coffee.
Why do you drink coffee?
Yeah, so I'm actually a medical student, so I've got to really, just stay up long hours and stuff like that.
I need at least 1 cup every day to just make me feel good in the morning and ready to take on the day.
Well, that sounds weird, but I want to stay awake, but it doesn't really work. Only works a little bit, so yeah.
Honestly, just the taste, I like it, and it's a good morning ritual. I wake up, I get my coffee, I start the day, yeah.
Production funding for QED with Dr. B is provided by
Battelle cares about STEM because it was part of our founding. Gordon Battelle, our founder, believed in building an institute that would actually better society through the use of science and technology. And this year we're going to hit a goal of 1 million students a year that we'll be able to impact around the country.
American Electric Power Foundation, boundless energy for brighter futures. And by viewers like you. Thank you.